No one would go near him. People whispered his name in fear as he passed through the streets. Some stepped aside quickly. Others turned their faces away. The man was known for one terrible reason. He was a leper. In those days, a person suffering from leprosy was not just sick. He was considered unclean, dangerous, untouchable. Families abandoned them. Towns pushed them away. Even a shadow falling too close could make people panic. Day after day, this man lived outside the village, cut off from the world he once knew. No one would speak to him. No one would help him. And certainly no one would ever touch him. But one day, everything changed. Because a teacher was walking through the region, a man known for doing the impossible. And when Jesus Christ saw the leper, he did something no one expected. He reached out his hand. In the days when Jesus Christ traveled from town to town teaching, the land of Israel was filled with people searching for hope. Many were sick, many were poor, and many felt forgotten. But among all the suffering people of that time, none were treated worse than those who had leprosy. Leprosy was one of the most feared diseases in the ancient world. It slowly destroyed the body. Skin became pale and damaged. Wounds appeared that would not heal. Over time, the disease could even deform a person's hands or face. But the physical pain was only part of the suffering. The greater pain came from what society did to them. According to the law, anyone with leprosy had to live far away from the community. They were not allowed to live in towns or villages. They could not go to the market. They could not enter the temple. They could not hug their children. They could not see their families. If someone approached them on the road, they were required to shout a warning. Unclean, unclean. It was a life of complete isolation. No friendship, no comfort, no future. Imagine watching people live normal lives from a distance, while knowing you could never return to that world again. This was the reality for the man in our story. Once, he had been like everyone else. He had a home. He had a family. He had dreams for the future. But everything changed the day the first signs of leprosy appeared on his skin. From that moment on, his life became a slow descent into loneliness and despair. And yet, one day, a rumor began spreading through the countryside. People were talking about a teacher, a man who healed the sick, a man who restored the broken, a man named Jesus Christ. For the man with leprosy, every day began the same way. Alone, he woke beneath the open sky, far from the towns and villages where normal life continued without him. The wind carried the distant sounds of people working, laughing, and living, reminders of the world he had lost. Once, he had walked those same streets. Once, he had been welcomed. But that life felt like a distant memory now. When the first signs of the disease appeared on his skin, everything changed. At first, he tried to hide it. He wrapped cloth around the damaged areas and avoided people's eyes. But the sickness could not stay hidden forever. Soon the marks spread. Neighbors began whispering. Friends stopped visiting. Then the priests examined him. Their verdict was final. He was unclean. From that moment, the man was forced to leave everything behind. His home, his friends, even his family. He could no longer embrace his children. He could no longer sit at the table with those he loved. If he came too close to others, he had to shout a warning. Unclean, unclean. People stepped away in fear. Some covered their faces. Others threw stones to drive him farther away. The disease slowly damaged his body, but rejection damaged something even deeper, his spirit. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Hope faded. No doctor could help him. No priest could restore him. And no one dared to touch him. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A traveler passed near the outskirts where the lepers lived. He carried news. News about a teacher moving through the region, a man performing miracles. The traveler spoke of blind people receiving sight, of the sick being healed instantly, of broken lives being restored. And the name that people repeated again and again was Jesus Christ. For the first time in a very long time, the leper felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The rumor spread quickly across the countryside. Villagers whispered about the miracles of Jesus Christ. Some said he had opened the eyes of the blind. Others said he had healed people who had been sick for years. Everywhere he went, crowds gathered. People came from villages, farms, and distant towns just to see him. But far away from those crowds, outside the safe boundaries of society, the leper listened to these stories with growing disbelief. Could it really be true? Could there truly be someone who had the power to heal diseases no one else could cure? The thought would not leave his mind. Day after day, the same question echoed inside his heart. What if this man could heal me? Yet the risk was enormous. People like him were forbidden to enter towns. If he walked too close to others, they would shout, throw stones, or drive him away. But desperation can make a person brave, and hope can make a person do what once seemed impossible. One morning, the man heard that Jesus Christ was passing through a nearby area. A crowd had already gathered around the teacher. Men, women, and children pressed close, eager to hear his words. Slowly, cautiously, the leper began to move toward the gathering. At first, no one noticed him. But then someone saw the torn clothing. Someone saw the damaged skin. A voice shouted in alarm. The leper. People stepped back in fear. Others pulled their children away. The crowd began to scatter as the man approached. But the leper kept walking, step by step, ignoring the frightened voices, ignoring the gasps of the crowd, until finally, he stood face to face with Jesus Christ. Then, with trembling hands and a heart full of desperate hope, the man fell to his knees. His voice shook as he spoke the words that would change everything. Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. For a moment, everything became silent. The crowd held its breath. No one moved. The man with leprosy knelt in the dust, his head lowered, waiting for a response. He had taken the greatest risk of his life just by coming this close. Everyone knew the rules. A leper was not supposed to approach people. A leper was never supposed to touch anyone. And no one, absolutely no one, would ever touch a leper. People stepped back, creating distance between themselves and the sick man. Some looked at Jesus Christ, wondering what he would do. Would he command the man to leave? Would he warn him to keep his distance? Would he turn away like everyone else? But Jesus did something that shocked them all. Slowly, he stepped forward, not away from the man, but toward him. The crowd gasped. Then Jesus stretched out his hand. For years, no human hand had come near the leper's skin. No comfort, no kindness, no touch. But in that moment, Jesus Christ reached out and touched him. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with compassion. Then Jesus spoke. I am willing, he said gently. Be clean. And instantly, something extraordinary happened. The disease that had controlled the man's life for years vanished. The damaged skin began to clear. The wounds disappeared. Strength returned to his body. In a moment, the sickness that had stolen his life was gone. The man who had once been untouchable was now completely healed. The crowd stared in amazement. Some could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. The man looked down at his hands, overwhelmed with shock and joy. For the first time in years, he was clean. For several long moments, the man could not speak. He stared at his hands in disbelief. The scars were gone. The damaged skin had disappeared. The disease that had once defined his entire existence was no longer there. The crowd around him whispered in shock. Some leaned closer to look at the miracle with their own eyes. Others stepped back in awe of what they had just witnessed. Only minutes earlier, the man had been untouchable. Now he stood before them completely whole. The man slowly lifted his head and looked at Jesus Christ. His eyes filled with tears. For years, he had lived outside society, rejected, isolated, and forgotten. But in a single moment, everything had changed. Not only had his body been healed, his life had been restored. Jesus looked at the man with calm authority and gave him an instruction. He told him to go to the priests and present himself, just as the law required. This would confirm to everyone that he was truly free from leprosy. Only then could he return to normal life again. Imagine what that meant for the man. He could go home. He could walk through the village streets again. He could embrace the people he loved. The doors that had once been closed to him were now open. But this miracle was more than a physical healing. It was a reminder to everyone who witnessed it that day. No one was too broken. No one was too unclean. And no one was beyond the reach of God's compassion. The man who once lived in isolation walked away that day as a completely different person. Not long ago, he had been forced to live outside the village, cut off from everyone he loved. People avoided him. They feared him. Some even treated him as if he were already dead. But now everything had changed, because he had met Jesus Christ. In a single moment, the sickness that had stolen years of his life was gone. The man who had once been called unclean could finally return home. Imagine the moment he walked back into the village. Imagine the faces of the people who once avoided him. And imagine the joy of the family who thought they might never see him again. But the miracle that happened that day was about more than healing a disease. It revealed something much deeper about the heart of God. In a world where people rejected the broken, Jesus Christ did the opposite. He moved toward them. He touched the untouchable. He restored the forgotten. And that truth still matters today. Because no matter how broken someone feels, no matter how far they believe they have fallen, no one is beyond God's reach.